Ever feel like everyone around you is putting on an act? Holden Caulfield certainly did. In The Catcher in the Rye, his obsession with phonies isn't just a teenage rant. It's a profound commentary on authenticity that still resonates today. And honestly, it might be even more relevant now than it was in 1951. So let's start with the big question. What does Holden actually mean when he calls someone a phony? To him, phoniness isn't just lying. It's not even about being fake in a superficial way. It's a whole worldview, an allergy to anything that feels rehearsed, performative, or insincere. Phoniness is the smile that's too wide, the compliment that's too polished, the social ritual that feels like everyone's following a script they didn't write. For Holden, it's the difference between a real moment and a performed moment. And it drives him absolutely crazy. He sees it everywhere, starting with the institutions he's supposed to trust. At Pensy Prep, the school prides itself on molding boys into fine young men. But Holden sees nothing but marketing slogans and hypocrisy. He mocks the headmaster who only acts friendly around wealthy parents. He rolls his eyes when teachers talk about building character, while caring more about reputation than actual learning. Even Mr. Spencer, who genuinely cares about him, ends up giving a lecture that feels like a script he's delivered 1,000 times before. Holden senses the performance under every interaction, and it doesn't stop at school. Once Holden steps into the adult world, the phoniness seems even louder. Take the social rituals he stumbles through in New York, the dates, the small talk, the fancy bars. When he meets Sally Hayes, their date becomes a perfect example of everything he hates: empty flattery, pretentious conversations, and people pretending to care while only talking about themselves. Even the theater performance they watch feels like a giant act, exaggerated and artificial. Holden doesn't just dislike the show, he dislikes the audience who applauds it. To him, they're clapping for all the wrong reasons. Holden's frustration extends to artists and creators too. He wants art to be honest, raw, and meaningful. But he assumes most performers are trying too hard to impress rather than express. Actors strike him as people who hide behind roles. Writers, he thinks, are always trying to sound clever instead of truthful. He even complains about his brother B, selling out to Hollywood because screenwriting feels fake compared to real writing. It's not just pretentiousness that bothers Holden. It's the sense that everyone is putting on a mask instead of showing who they really are. But here's where things get interesting. Because the deeper we read, the clearer it becomes that Holden may be the biggest phony of all. He lies constantly, sometimes to protect himself, sometimes for no reason at all. He judges people harshly while secretly craving connection. He criticizes adults for being insincere, yet he stumbles through conversations desperately trying to sound older, cooler, or less vulnerable than he feels. Even his fantasy of being the catcher in the rye, saving children from falling into adulthood, is both beautiful and impossibly idealistic, a performance he wants to believe about himself. And through all of this, we start seeing a different side of Holden. His world isn't just full of phonies. It's full of fear of growing up, fear of losing innocence, fear of becoming the very thing he hates. His anger becomes a shield, and his obsession with phoniness becomes a way to avoid looking at his own pain. Yet despite all the contradictions, Holden's voice still feels shockingly familiar today. In an era of curated feeds, influencer personas, and constant pressure to look authentic, Holden's frustration hits close to home. We live in a world where everyone is both the observer and the performer, where sincerity is rare and self-presentation is constant. So when Holden calls out the masks people wear, it doesn't feel outdated. It feels like he's been doom-scrolling right beside us. So why does Holden's world of phonies still feel so real to us in 2025? Because the struggle he names, the tension between who we are and who we pretend to be, has only intensified. Every day, we navigate filtered lives, perform relatability, and measure authenticity through metrics, likes, comments, followers. Holden's instinctive rejection of anything choreographed feels like the internal scream we don't always admit. Am I being real, or am I performing realness? And it's not just about social media, it's about institutions that feel disconnected. It's about workplaces that preach well-being while overworking people. It's about conversations where everyone sounds polished, but no one feels heard. It's about the generational frustration with systems that promise meaning but deliver routine. Holden's cynicism, then, isn't outdated angst, it's a mirror. He shows us what it looks like when a young mind feels alienated from a world that rewards performance over sincerity. But he also shows us the cost of seeing only the fake and missing the real. Because for all his criticisms, Holden often overlooks genuine kindness, Phoebe's love, the nun's honesty, the quiet beauty in small interactions he's too overwhelmed to let himself trust. And maybe that's the final paradox of Holden Caulfield. He hates phoniness because he desperately wants something real. He's terrified of growing up because he sees adulthood as a graveyard of sincerity. And he pushes people away because he doesn't know how to admit he needs them. In the end, Holden's world forces us to confront a simple but uncomfortable question. If everyone else is a phony, what does that make us? Do we hide behind humor, ambition, aesthetics, or success? Do we curate ourselves to be liked? Do we perform confidence while feeling lost underneath? Holden's story doesn't give us answers, just the courage to ask the questions. And that's why this book continues to resonate. Not because Holden is perfect, he isn't. Not because he's wise, he isn't. But because he's honest about the messiness inside him, even if that honesty is wrapped in fear, contradictions, and teenage sharp edges. Maybe the world is full of phonies. Maybe we're all pretending. But maybe, just maybe, naming the phoniness is the first step toward finding what's real. If Holden's world feels familiar to you, you're not alone. The search for authenticity is a universal struggle, and The Catcher in the Rye reminds us how deeply we crave connection that isn't filtered or performed. So here's my question for you. Where do you see phoniness in your world today? And more importantly, where do you find the moments that still feel real? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want to dive deeper into Holden's contradictions, Salinger's themes, and the hidden psychology of this iconic novel, make sure to watch the full video essay linked below. Thanks for watching, and stay real.